What's going on, guys? It's Caden Cleveland here with the Oklahoma Senate, and you are joining us for another episode of OK Senate on Deck. We got a great episode for you today. We're going to be unveiling some really exciting news for the upcoming session. Of course, we're joined with our President Pro Tem, Senator Greg Treat. Senator, welcome. And, I guess here. Yeah, absolutely. Session is here, starting today. So a little bit what I was hoping to talk to you about today. Now that session is here and we are gearing up and going, question for you is the key focuses of the Senate. And I really want to get through the Senate agenda that was unveiled this past week and kind of get you to explain those points a little bit more.
So, yeah, I'm excited to talk about it.
Awesome. Well, guys, hang around. This is going to be a really cool episode. We're going to be talking about the Senate agenda and really just diving into where the key focuses are going to be. So hang around and we'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. As I mentioned before, of course, we're joined with our President Pro Tem, Senator Greg Treat. So, Senator, with session being here, everybody's geared up and ready to go. Last week, you unveiled the Senate agenda, and I was really hoping to kind of dive into that and look at that, have you explain a few of those points for us. But there was one thing, before we get to the actual points, there was something just about the agenda that I noticed is a little bit different this year for the Senate than previous years. So can you kind of talk to us about that, about the difference in the agenda points this year?
Yeah, I felt it was really important. I gave direction to the agenda setting committee and then the caucus when we got together that I wanted it to be brief, I wanted it to be actionable, and I wanted it to be very to the point.
Okay.
Some people accuse me of being too blunt,
right,
to the point, but we can judge ourselves off of this, of progress.
Right.
We can coalesce around these ideas, and I really wanted it to be 4 or 5 points,
right,
brief and to the point, and the caucus did a wonderful job of achieving that.
Of being very specific in your goals and your actions that you're going to take. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. The first point in the agenda is a lot to do with budget transparency. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about that and what your vision is for what that might look like?
Yeah, we talked about this over the interim some. It's encapsulated in Senate Bill 1, or the LOFT, Legislative Office of Fiscal Transparency. But my caucus, myself personally, believe it's extremely important that taxpayers know exactly where their dollars are going. The most important job we do as legislators is write a budget, and we can't fly blind on it. We've got to have real information. We've got to have objective information to be able to see where the money's really going. We had the health department scandal where we had to appropriate $30 million based on bad information,
right,
and we had no information of our own to counter the information that was coming to us from the agency. We can't do this alone. The executive branch needs more transparency. I'm excited that Governor Stitt's talking about that. Speaker McCall and I have been talking about how do we create something like this to get us better information. Also, to do program evaluation. So after we pass something that's supposed to help Oklahoma in one way or another, a lot of times we pass things and we can't go back and see, is it hitting those objectives?
Wow, okay.
So a lot of states have a similar type organization that provides the legislature with objective information.
Right.
I'm excited about trying to get more information. This will also be readily available to the public.
Right.
So my caucus believes it's extremely important we have more transparency in the budget and more eyes on it.
And I think that's something that's been really just Oklahomans in general, just the public kind of cry for more transparency in the budgeting process. And especially you mentioned the health department and everything that happened there. I mean, just more and more reliable, consistent information for the legislature would help prevent those sort of things. So,
we have excellent staff here
absolutely,
that help us at the Senate on the House side write our budgets. We just need to get more information and be able to get information separate and apart from what the agencies tell us.
So Senate Bill 1, the LOFT bill is what it's kind of been titled as, is what this is trying to accomplish. Is that correct? Okay.
And this agenda item is not limited just to Senate Bill 1. Okay. Other people have ideas on how to make the budget more transparent. We're excited about those ideas, working those ideas to the legislature. It's not just Senate Bill 1.
Right.
But Senate Bill 1 is a huge part of it.
Gotcha. Okay. So moving on to the second point here, if that's all right, unless you had something else to add there. Government accountability. Walk us through that a little bit. That was the main kind of overarching kind of theme of the second point. Is there some specific ideas that you have there that would create this government accountability, or what?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that can go toward this as well. Mm-hmm. But the main area of focus on this is giving the governor more authority to hire and fire agency mm-hmm. directors. So when the governor runs for office, they make promises, they make commitments, they have ideas. A lot of times they get into office and realize they don't have a lot of control over that because the agencies, boards, and commissions can do whatever they want right. outside of the governor's authority. Governor Stitt talked a lot about it on the campaign trail. Obviously, people were receptive to that. They supported him overwhelmingly. Senate Republicans have been talking about this for a few years now, been trying to get it. Unfortunately, we've only been successful in Department of Human Services and Department of Health, where there's been some kind of controversy spurred on. But rather than being reactive to a controversy, these bills seek to be proactive and say, let's give the governor's chief executive the ability to be successful. Now, if they're not successful, it's going to be abundantly clear.
Exactly.
Governor Stitt, I believe in his vision for it. I think the House and Senate are working very closely on trying to get more government accountability, and the Senate Republicans believe strongly in this.
And I love it. And it just seems to make sense because the people elect a leader, and it makes sense to not have to tie one of the leader's hands behind his back, but rather give him the ability to I guess, lead and put the right people in the right places. So.
Yeah, I mean, checks and balances. One of the things that people argue against this is, you're going to concentrate all the power in the governor's hands. No, the legislature is still going to have the ability to, in some instances, confirm those appointments. But also, we're supposed to be looking over their budgets. We're supposed to be providing oversight. A divided executive against itself leads to ineffective leadership. The legislature is the only branch of government that was designed to be divided. I guess in Oklahoma, judicially, you've got the Court of Criminal Appeals and the Supreme Court.
Right.
But in most systems, the legislature, the House and Senate, it's supposed to be hard to get an idea through to change the law.
Right.
But on the executive, once you're supposed to be implementing that law, overseeing these agencies, it's extremely important that we empower whoever the Oklahomans choose to be the chief executive to actually run the executive side of state government.
Love that. Love it. Okay. So the next agenda point, I think, is one that a lot of people got excited about when they saw kind of the confirmation of it, but it's education, a continued education investment. Walk us through that. What does that look like? Is it just continuing what was done last year, or is it adding on to it? You kind of walk us through that.
Yeah. So education has been and will continue to be our number one priority as far as the budget goes, as far as state policy goes. We made a huge investment last year, the biggest investment that we've had since statehood into education. We're going to keep that commitment, number one. First and foremost, people need to know we're keeping that commitment. Mm-hmm. We're going to try to continue to grow that investment in education. We're not exactly sure because the final certification hasn't come out yet on how much money is available to be able to put into the classroom, to put into salaries. Mm-hmm. But we're absolutely committed. The state, we appropriate about $2.9 billion to common education out of a total appropriations of about $7 billion.
Okay.
But the investment in education is much more. If you look at the local investment, the state investment that is off the top monies that the legislature has said, these monies are so important it doesn't need to come through the appropriations process. It's going to go straight to education. And then the federal, which accounts for 10% of education funding, roundabout. Very round numbers. But the total is about $9.1 billion that goes into common education in Oklahoma. But we are going to absolutely keep that investment, keep the momentum, and make sure that not only Oklahomans, but the nation and the world knows that Oklahoma is serious about education.
Love that. Love it. Okay. Last point here for the last agenda point, but definitely not the least of the priorities, I would say, just not speaking for you, but it just seems that way. But the criminal justice reform has been a huge deal the past few years, just in Oklahoma in general. A lot of citizens really starting to understand the need for criminal justice reform. So walk us through what that looks like as far as what your plans are for improving criminal justice reform.
So specifically, Senate Republicans have said we're going to make sure that we continue to support criminal justice reform through diversion programs and making sure that we continue to support and expand the diversion programs. So what are diversion programs?
Exactly right. That was my question.
So it's, a lot of people go to prison off of drug abuse and or substance abuse or mental health issues. Mm-hmm. That's not all the people, and sometimes it leads to more serious crimes beyond that. But if we can intervene and get people into a diversion program, short of going to prison, to try to correct their behavior, get the help they need, wake them up to the fact that they need to do better, we'll be better off as a state. There's some upfront investment cost to doing that, but long term you have financial savings, but you also have huge social benefits of these people being able to be productive members of society, being productive and active parents in their children's lives. It's not just about criminal justice, but these people that end up going to prison a lot of times have kids in the DHS system. Their whole lives are wrapped up in it. Senate Republicans are committed to keeping up the momentum on criminal justice reform. Like I said, specifically on this agenda, we're talking about the diversion programs and making sure we support those, but it's an extremely important component of criminal justice reform.
Gotcha. So even you talk about criminal justice reform, but specifically speaking, it seems like the diversion programs and actually heading off the problem before it really kind of contributes to the overpopulation of our prisons and stuff. It's more of a focus on actually helping those people not get there in the first place. Is that
you look at drug courts where it's an alternative to prison, keeping people out of those. They've been wildly successful. Some of the changes that the voters put in with 780 and 781, there's not the same kind of stick, the carrot and stick to get people to go into these diversion programs. But we need to make sure we put an increased emphasis on people getting their lives right and straight. And it saves taxpayer money, but more importantly, it makes society more productive.
Gotcha. Okay. Well,
and lives better.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we're about out of time here, but that's the 4 main points of the agenda this year. It's so nice to see a very clear and direct, like you mentioned, agenda to see where the Senate will be focusing on this year. So do you have anything else to add on that?
Let me be clear. Senate Republicans can't do it alone. So we're going to be working with our colleagues across the aisle on the Democrat side, see what their priorities are. I'm sure some of them overlap. The House Republicans, House Democrats, the governor's office. I don't want people to think when we put it on an agenda, we think this is all we care about. These are the things that we've prioritized. And we look forward to working with our counterparts both in the Senate, the House, and the governor's office to move Oklahoma forward.
And on that, we've kind of seen where Governor Stitt's vision is, and even over in the House, where their vision, and it seems like everything's kind of meshing together pretty well moving into session. Would you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, I'm excited. I've never been more excited going to a session. I think we're going to have a very productive session.
Let's go. Awesome. Well, Senator, thank you so much for joining us this week and kind of walking us through what the agenda looks like for this year for the Senate Republicans. And guys, thank you for joining us and just listen. I hope you're able to learn a little bit about everything that the Senate is focusing on, the Senate Republicans, and where we're going to be, where the Senate's going to be really prioritizing a lot of their efforts this year. So anyways, guys, again, you can view any of our videos at protem.oksenate.gov. If you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We have a direct email to the podcast here. It's ondeck@oksenate.gov. If you have any questions about these agenda items or really any topic whatsoever, we would like to discuss them here on the show. So anything else to add, Senator?
No, keep the email questions coming. We like them. It helps us tailor to what you're interested in.
That's exactly right. Guys, thank you so much, and I guess we'll see you next week. Bye.